can sign up in the Blackboard thing. And then the same deal. You'll see that there's a note. The only note is that, we asked you guys for your vaccine cards and everything. And we don't have to do that now because we can get a list auto-generated for all of you. So just if you are not in the program for Cleared for Harper, so Cleared for Harper only really applies to everybody who's taking an in-person class or has a class that meets at least partially on campus. If you're not taking a class that meets on campus, then you're not in that. It's just that you still need proof of vaccine or and then get tested and you're on. Cool. Cool. I hate to do this. Maybe all I have to really worry about is that we don't have more than 24 people, but let me just verify quickly who's here. I'm here. Division's here. Wilson is here. Amani's here. Marion's here. Pancho, I just saw. Safa, I saw. Hello. Emily, I saw. Jaden. Hello. Jacob. There you are. Carolina. Carolina. Get it wrong twice. Lydia. There you are. You're behind a little robot. Stella, I saw her there. Sanjana. Not here yet. Okay, cool. Michaela. Hello. Drew and Brady are finishing recording something for my class. Oh, you're in. Good job, guys. No, Bailey. Name I say wrong every time. One time I say it right, she's not here. Melanie. Sam. Okay, cool. Sorry, we have to do that because of the size restraints. So
you have to call roll, or you have.
Well, we have to make sure we don't have sneaky people coming in who aren't supposed to be here.
Is it not really like? Don't we just have to say, did anybody not hear their name called? Is that the thing that we say to make sure?
Yeah. Anyone? I visually got it. One last note about that though. So in the future, we're going to post the sign up for the in-person meeting well in advance so that we can run you guys through the Cleared for Harper thing. So like you'll have to sign up for if you can follow this, the next in-person meeting is in 2 Wednesdays. You will have to sign up by the Thursday before that. Make sense? Because that's when we get the report for the Cleared for Harper. And we can check all your names against who signed up and make sure we don't have any negative wells. And so fun living in the days of COVID. Yeah, super neat. A vaccine card should clear you for the whole semester. You're doing negative tests.
Vaccine, I think we're just here for.
And I'll have my last legal disclaimer here. We're now recording. I want to record it. Stay quiet.
So what does it look like on your end? Like when you clear yourself for Harper, what does that look like? Like do you have to do it every day, or do you do it once you show proof of vaccination and then?
Did you not? Are you not?
I did, yeah, but I didn't know if it was the same process for students and.
But if you do a test, and it will sundown. So if you do a test, it'll be green, but only for like a few days, and then it goes red again. So you've gotta.
Okay, because with our kids, they make you every day you fill out the thing, regardless of the. They are vaccinated, yeah, yeah, but the kids go all the way from K through, so like so maybe that's why they do that. I don't know.
But this is a perfect opportunity to introduce our wonderful speaker or discussion leader, who is the esteemed former coordinator of the honors program, previous coordinator. Drew, you want to get a shameless plug in here for Japanese literature? It can even be Shane Bull if you'd like.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So anyways, I'm very pleased to have Professor Wilson from the
Okay, all right. Yeah, you go ahead, yeah, you start.
Do the plug for your class before we get.
For Japanese literature?
Yes.
if you are interested in taking Japanese literature, um, then I think it's Mondays and Wednesdays in the spring, 11 o'clock to something, 12 something, 12:15. I forget now. We've been away for so long. So I don't know how much to plug the class. If you don't have any interest, you shouldn't take it. If you are concerned about not speaking Japanese, neither do I. So you have no worries there. It's really just a lit class. It's fun. Some of the stuff we read is wild, and we do read a lot, but I feel like I remember telling the students a couple years ago, we were teaching it right in the midst of the pandemic. We got sent home and everything, but I remember telling them weirdly that I sort of didn't want the class to be their hardest class of the semester. I wanted them to enjoy the things we were reading. Of course, we have to read a little bit of the old stuff just to get a little bit of a picture of history and everything, but most of what we read was super fun, kind of nutty, and very 20th century or 21st century even. So it's at a great time. And it fulfills all of those check marks, like the world cultures and diversity check mark, and your humanities. I forget all this officious terminology, but yeah, all of the things that sometimes students are looking to try to complete it.
I thought I saw your hand up. Sorry.
So Japanese literature in translation.
Maybe
So,
it's-
Mani is she's a fantastic reader. Yeah. This is a gold standard student there. Yeah,
Oh.
amazing. I already know her. Yeah. So, yeah. So same class really as our other class, just different stuff. Yeah. We watch a couple movies. We watch an anime. You guys probably, I think you know way more about that than I do. So I just put it in and hit go, and then I have the students tell me what it means and everything. So, you wanted to say something about today's topic?
Discussion in the data. And I think some of you heard me tell this story before, but I don't know how many. I thought of a time that I saw Professor Wilson present a paper at a big national conference in California, the most of the conference. And the panel was about community college teaching, and it was pretty wide room. I mean, there must have been at least 50 people in it. Some of the people in the room were sort of angry about honors programs at community college.
Yeah.
This is how honors programs do. But so some of the people were just mad about that, but then I think he spoke with the last paper, and his paper was about recruiting to have sort of, more men in honors programs. So he started reading his introduction about how the diverse honors program in so many ways, and they were blessed to have so many different ethnicities and all that. And then, but as he was building his thesis, I was in the very back of this conference room. As he was building up his thesis, I could see that a number of the women in the room were moving closer to the edge of their chairs. And then he came to his thesis, which was that one way that still like first is that at that point we relatively few men in the honors program. Right. And when he got to his thesis, all the women sort of got to the edge of their anxiety, because I think that the proposal was, what should we be doing about this? Should we be, right, as I think recall, should we be in some way recruiting to bring more men into honors programs? And that idea upset a number of people in the room. So anyhow, right after the session was over, we escaped, and I brought you with my friend Jonathan to the Stanford cocktail party where none of
Yeah. Much more fun. Cocktail party. Yeah.
The point is, it was our escape from the hallway so that nobody could sort of attack this idea. But this is an idea, this was many years ago, but it has been in the press recently that fewer and fewer men are going to college,
Mhm.
you can leave college with a cert. It's now both. I think 40-60 were the numbers, yes?
Mhm.
And people say this is both.
More than that in some states, like unbelievably lopsided, but
Yeah.
40, I think nationally, 40-60-ish. It's the biggest gap ever. And what I mean by that, this is boring, this point, but the gap used to be reversed, of course. It used to be more men were in college than women. But that gap was never as big, believe it or not, as the gap, the gap that, isn't it Title IX, right? The gap that initiated Title IX, which is a good thing, like that's a thing that Congress passed in order to, create more equity, gender-wise and otherwise in colleges and universities. That gap was, I'm sorry, that measure to close that gap, the gap now is swung the other way and it's wider, but no one's doing any, you know, and so.
Somebody suggests recruiting for men and finding ways to support or make it easier for men to come to programs or college in general.
Yeah,
The traditional thing, men still have more attributes in our society, so et cetera, et cetera. So doesn't that crazy? But it is an interesting concept.
no, that was great. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I don't remember, I won't California thing, but I don't remember too many people being too angry with me. I just remember, you know, I think, yeah, and I also think like that was I was, well, yes, no. I kind of feel like it was, why, like you already said, like why worry? Why should we be, I think I wrote that, right? That why should we be concerned about a problem of not enough men when the problem historically is too many, presumably, by the way, not necessarily, but presumably the problem is too many men, not enough women, too many white men, not enough men of color, too many, too many of the traditional kind of Eurocentric, too much focus on that. So I didn't remember anybody getting too angry with me, but resisting in a way that sometimes you don't see at those conferences. Mhm.
Really paying attention.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
Not expecting.
Mhm. So I brought my phone, just like you guys, right? I'm just trying to be funny, but it didn't work. Usually I have a handout or I have something, but this time I just brought my phone. I was too lazy to type anything out, and I just wanted to ask you, and this is an honest question. So I have some hard facts, and I thought as honors students, you might want to hear just a couple of them. Not a litany of them, not a battery, but do you want me to do that? I'll give you a couple. It's pretty boring. All right. So and I mean that. I'm not being funny there. So we'll maybe just 2 minutes or 3 minutes. And one hard fact from the Atlantic, which is, I think, pretty respectable monthly publication. I would say exceedingly respectful and truthful, hopefully. One fact, American colleges now enroll 6 women for every 4 men. So this freshman class, I think they meant 2021, the fall of 2021. And my memory, this is not a hard fact, but a soft one, but when I was coordinating the honors program, that was a while back now, I feel like that presentation that Professor Tamajian mentioned, to me, I remember feeling the numbers were even more skewed, like it was for every 4 or 5, I would have those interviews with you guys and talk to you, and it was super fun. And I would have sometimes 5, 6 interviews in a row with female students before I would have an interview with a male student. And it sounds weird to say that because who cares, right? Like I loved them all, like they were all great, but then you do start to notice, right? You start to notice a trend and you start to wonder like what's going on? Why is it the case that more female students If it's just 1 week of more interviews with female students, obviously it doesn't mean anything. But if it's a semester after semester, and if the trend is really consistent and even widening, then it starts to feel like a thing. So this is saying 6 to 4. I kind of remember it being more like 6 to 1. But I don't know if it was Harper, I don't know. So, yeah.
There's 2 gentlemen who are at West Box, right? 2 and then there's 231. You go, right? No. Oh, you were getting the.
Yeah, I had one kind of cute anecdote about my kids. I always try to be careful about not overselling my kids with my students, but it's an anecdote, but it's a fact. It's definitely true. So, all right. So, 6 to 4. I didn't think that this statistic was like shocking or anything, but I'll give it to you. So after 6 years, I don't know if you know that the average student doesn't graduate in 4 years, right? So they give you 6, that's another topic for another day, right? But after 6 years, let's say that everyone stays in school and everything. So after 6 years, 65% of women who started as freshmen or graduate with a diploma. I'm talking about BA or BS, an undergraduate degree. And 59% of men graduate. So that number is, there's an obvious difference. So that cashes out to be millions of people, right? But because of all the millions of folks who are enrolled. But I don't think that statistic is, I don't think it's way out of line or anything like that. This may be interesting to you, even though it's a little technical and boring. The pandemic accelerated the trend. This is a direct quote from the Wall Street Journal. So the pandemic accelerated the trend. Nearly 700,000 fewer students of any gender were enrolled in colleges in the spring of 2021 compared with the spring of 2019. So is that clear? So you go back 2 years, it's the better part of 1 million students fewer who are enrolled. Is that clear? But this is a big statistic here. 78% of fewer men. I don't think I'm saying that very well. I typed this really fast, but of those 700,000 less, 78% of that is accounted for by male students. So that's like 80%. That's like 8 out of 10. That's
550.
yeah. I kept waiting for them to say exactly that, and they didn't. But I think that's how you interpret that statistic. So that's like way over half of the, I guess we would call them just absent, aren't there. It's not like students who are, so, okay. This is another is this boring, these hard facts? We're almost done with them, so don't worry. So this is pretty big statistic here, I think. So do you know, I hope I'm right. So in California, I think that you can no longer account for race and gender in your admissions. Do you know that? Yeah, they passed a proposition something or whatever, I think like a year ago or 2 years ago, institutions in California. The private institutions can always do whatever they want. So within reason. So the proportion of male undergrads at UCLA fell to 41% in the fall of 2020, a year ago, from 45 in 2013. Over the same period, undergraduate enrollment expanded by nearly 3,000 students. And this is the big picture. Of those spots, 9 out of 10 went to women. So I guess the point there is when you don't do anything to try to tip the scales back, then the gap becomes even more, I think more lopsided. So maybe just a couple more here. So this is all across the country. So this one's not so in 2021, all college applications, 2021. So this year, this fall, 3,805,978. I bet you didn't know you were counted this way, but I guess you were. 3,800,000 roughly are women. How many do you think are men? 1 million, up a little, 2,815,810, right? So a million fewer men. So I'm not good with math, but that sounds like the ratio there sounds, actually sounds consistent with that 6-4 thing that they'd said earlier. So, okay. And this is the last one here. So some schools are trying to tip the scales toward the center. Okay, meaning, I don't know, your name here up front, but like if you're applying and you're applying next to a male student, like we really want you to come, but we might kind of like, like we might sort of like also really carefully look at the male student's application. Some schools are trying to do that. And this part gets out of the facts and into a little bit more of the messiness of it, but nobody, almost really no school wants to do that out into the open air, right? They don't want you to know that there's any kind of like secret, I think the word is tacit, effort to sort of increase male enrollment. Because, well, can you tell me? I'm just asking kind of, I have my own answer, but why not? It doesn't look good. I don't know, like why wouldn't you? Mhm. Okay, okay. So if it's out there, but I'm not asking you to answer this next thing, but the thing is maybe, I don't know if you all agree that it's a problem at all, but let's just pretend for a moment, you with me, like it's a problem, right? That this is a problem, this is lopsided, it's not proportionate to like the demographics of our country. If we agree that it's a problem, I know you might not agree, but if we agree it's a problem, shouldn't we discuss it openly? And you don't have to answer, that's rhetorical, but like, do you know what I mean though? Like, shouldn't we, let's put it out there. If you don't agree that we should tip the scales a little bit to try to even things out, that's fair, that's fine. But can't we talk about it though? Like, can't we like, can't we have a open discussion or debate or something? Let's say,
One regarding the first question, initially. Another issue, I think, an even more concerning issue potentially is how unprepared male students. That's not helpful to society.
right.
Assuming we are in the agreement, and we may not, be,
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
that is a problem. The issue would be in education here. So pretending that they qualify when they don't.
Good. Yeah. Yeah.
Taking the time to actually get mentor on.
Right, yeah.
In terms of the second question, there is, but, well, it goes back to what, I'm sorry, what was your name, Dan? Goes back to what you said, regarding the speech earlier.
Mhm.
Over at
Mhm.
Shaw.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Actually, the first thing you said, I like that a lot. Like, I'm not agreeing or disagreeing, of course. I'm just saying that I like that because that suggests, right, that the problem goes all the way down to kindergarten, right? Like maybe there's something that was in my sort of anecdotal part, like there may be issues where school just isn't that interesting to our boys of any background, right? It's of course to some it is. Everyone knows this isn't a comprehensive thing, but and so then I think I'm hearing you say that. So if we get those boys, they're well-meaning, they're good folks, and I mean that. Like there's nothing wrong, like behaviorally, but if we give them the place, as opposed to a really super qualified young lady, that's, I think I heard you say something like socially, like that's it could be socially damaging, right? So, yeah.
Like, I don't know, challenge?
Yeah.
One thing you just said about the discussing it open. Because isn't it different to discuss open in this forum, should be different,
Mhm.
as opposed to saying, hey, we're gonna be open about the fact we're already doing. It's kind of, one's a debate about whether it's good or not, the other is like, we're pretty sure you're gonna think it's bad, so we're not gonna tell you we're doing it.
I agree with you. What I'm saying is, well, I think as you know, although maybe we forget because we haven't seen each other for so long, right? But I feel like there are a number of conversations that our culture is very afraid to have, and it's not trendy. One of them would be this one, right? It's just not it's not popular, or it's not sort of in sync with what we hear in social media or in the left-leaning press. And I love the left-leaning press and all that. I mean that, but it isn't. This topic is not popular with that. You know, with I think with that line of thinking, there's a problem with men. We need more of them. We need more. And the article is actually, there's a little bit of courage in both those articles you sent, because they say that. They're like, that's part of the problem, the silence, like the fact that we're just not willing to be open about the fact that not all of the problems in our culture have to do with the social justice issues that we hear so much about, and those are really important. Please know that. Like, that's not the point, that those should take a back seat or anything like that. So, I just want to, the gentleman right there.
Yeah, one of the things, but that's the good thing about this. Is that taking into account with them? Like that, with the formation for the trip on the way?
That's such a good question, and I simply don't know. I will tell you my guess, which is no, it doesn't. I think I believe that both articles, I don't think I read that though, but I believe that both of them are talking about traditional, traditional is a bad word, but like, yeah, the 4-year schools where you're getting a BA in bio or chem or in English, or, you know what I mean? It's like those kinds of programs. However, before you know, the article, the one from the Wall Street Journal, does talk about, it doesn't talk about trade schools necessarily, or what we used to call them 1,000 years ago, vocational kinds of programs, but it does talk about the fact that, like my father and especially like my father's father, like those guys in the 50s and the 40s, like they had a very different set of opportunities without a college education that you don't, presumably you don't have. You do have it, but it's more rare. Like my dad he did go to college, but he could have like worked in some like steel mill in Pittsburgh or whatever, and he could have done okay. Like it would have been horrible in his mind. I think it would have been awful work or whatever, but he could have like made a living, could have been part of the union and sort of raised a family on that money. And I think they're calling it like the post-industrial. I don't know, who cares? But like, we're not in that age anymore where we're manufacturing in Cleveland and Pittsburgh and Detroit and those kinds of places like we used to. So those kinds of jobs, they're out there, but did that make sense just now?
So I think one of the things that is getting school is that there's a constant push for everybody to go to college.
Right. Mhm.
Whether-
Yep.
But-
Mm.
I thought that everyone should go to college.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a case that not everybody should go to college.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think maybe that's more men are going into doing.
Yeah. I got you. I love it. I love what you're saying. I'm not asking you to reply, and I'm not even pushing back. All I'm saying is, I completely agree, you know, that there is it's almost like a preconceived truth, right? That everyone should go to college. And I think I'm hearing you challenge that a little bit. It might not be. Why though would it be less? Why would men feel that way more? That's my question. You don't have to answer that. Like, why is it that 1 million more men feel that way than women? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I think a lot of these vocational jobs.
yeah.
Another thing is the field.
Mhm.
Everything on this field is like plumbing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Carpentry, stuff like that.
of course. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Built by the funding. School.
Right. Mm-hmm.
We have a bunch of.
Yeah.
I guess one for,
Yeah.
would, they said possibly could. Would it necessarily be a thing of a scale? We were more on a scale.
Leveling. Yeah. My verbiage. was sloppy. Yes, evening, right, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that I just before I'm really interested in the, let's move on though, but like the thing you said about the plumbers and I'm going to try this. I'm just going to, throw it out there, but I guess that what's concerning, and this is, I'm not doing a speech anymore. This is honest. Like one thing that worries me is that college, like an education, I feel like sometimes the culture perceives it in as a feminine, like as effeminate or as, as it's like that's what I worry about a little bit. Like the message to young boys sometimes can be polluted with this idea, or there's a kind of corrupted message there that, yeah, you can go there and you can study your philosophy, or you can be like me, you can be an English major. By the way, I'm from Ohio. Like when I told people I was an English major, they're like, what? What's you speak English fine. Like, how come you should be majoring in business or whatever? And so if you're gonna go to college, do you know what I mean? There, like, if you're gonna go, and millions of men are going, but it's so often it's engineering, it's business, it's like you're gonna get out there and you're gonna like make some money and all that stuff. And that's all awesome. It's awesome, but it's just I that's part of the and just what you said, beautifully said, like that kind of like that sort of reminded me of that part of this equation. This we're not in the facts anymore. Like this is just like why? Why is this happening? Well, is part of the answer why? Because the culture, because the perception or the image of college in the culture, increasingly no one talks about it or even maybe knows it wholly or whatever. But the image of college is that it's not for like the tough guy. Like so. But yes. I'm sorry, Amani and. Yeah.
Bit louder.
Going back to the why. It's funny. It took so long to get the change
Yeah.
educated. Started to make that shift as the same, but in the work environment, it's not exactly that.
Right. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm.
What's the question there? So
Where are they going to go? Yeah. Yeah. I keep hearing that it is changing. The article, one of the flaws, I think it was the Atlantic article. I shouldn't say flaw because who am I? But one of the things that I found kind of a little weak in, I think the article in the Atlantic was that it mentioned that, which is awesome. But what it said was there aren't enough women senators, women in Congress. And then it said, really interestingly, there aren't enough women who are like CEOs, like who are running companies. What I don't know, Monty, is that's unmistakably true. You can just count them. Like every time we have an election, it's obvious, But if you're looking at millions and millions of jobs out there, I do think the gap is closing, and I think it's closing really fast. And also, I think the money gap, although Professor Chemajian, I think, knows more about this than I do. I'm not saying it's better, or I'm sorry, I'm not saying it's like completely, you know, but
I think it's
mhm. Yes, but I don't, but is it true? Can you say that more men are holding the jobs if you're just looking at Congress and the Senate and the CEO positions? Most of us are, I don't mean to burst bubble, but most of us probably not going to be senators. And I'm not trying to be funny, like maybe you are, and I mean that, but I think most of us are going to be working humble, hopefully very good paying jobs. But
Pretty pronounced and balanced. STEM fields, sciences, et
yeah.
cetera.
Mhm.
All right. Real quick. One interesting argument that I'm picking up from what you just said, Bonnie, is that like but like, I'll just sort of make this great that there's way more women than men graduating college. Because what that means is in 20 years, there would be a much higher likelihood that women will be at least equal in power, not just in being in position of power. And then we'll worry about the rest later, but give it 20 years. Like, let's have 20 years for every, instead of at a engineering company, there's one woman for every 20 men. Let it come to being 50-50, and then we'll worry about there's no men graduating from college.
I think between 75 and 80% of the US public teachers are women. So there are disciplines, there are fields that need a college degree. And by the way, many people in public education end up getting MA degree. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying we have to be careful. Like the market is still saturated with men at the top. I don't know about that. Like I think it depends on the yeah.
We're getting, sorry, I didn't mean to butt in. Go ahead.
What's that? Yeah. Yeah. Yes, yeah. And yes.
Wondering, I don't know. Just wondering if, like statistically, the amount of men that are not going to college has to do with the amount of diagnosis
Mhm.
that more men get.
Mhm.
So I wonder if that has something to do.
Yeah.
Like, superficially, they're accidentally.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I know that it is a pretty big
Mhm.
diagnosis. There's not like decades of research on it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not saying this to be nice. It's interesting that you mentioned that because you're not saying anything definitively, but you're going to the possibility that there's a biological, that there's some chemistry or something behind it. And I didn't say that, but it was actually, isn't it funny, like the Wall Street Journal article was better than the Atlantic one, because that's the one that mentioned those kinds of possibilities. And what that said was, first of all, who knows, comma, no one knows, but it could be that boys, this is another thing we seem not to want to discuss much, but it could be that boys or males are wired a little bit differently. It was very careful not to say much differently, but just a little bit, but didn't say the ADHD thing. It said that there seems to be evidence that young men take more risks. And I think they meant that pure and simple, like they either physical risks or sometimes the other kind, and they get distracted a little bit more easily. One of the things they said interestingly was that young men, there's some, researchers who feel like they're more willing to drop out of school because they see a money opportunity. Like, like they see like, there's a chance for me to make money right now. I can always go back later. But we all know that's a risk, right? That's, yeah, you could do that, but will you go back later? Maybe like, who knows, so I'm just trying to follow up on what you said, that because you said something basically about the body, really, like and that was not the ADHD thing wasn't explored. So. Mm-hmm. What of women? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Goes, all I.
But to your point,
But why are we looking only at that graph? Why not? Why aren't we looking at education? Or why aren't you looking at home health care or nursing or other, all of these degrees that also require a college education and that pay well? I don't know about home health care, I don't know, but I think, yes.
oh, sorry. Yeah.
Is that current or is it?
2019.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I was just gonna say that kind of, I think the point that you just mentioned about men being more willing to take risks, which I think like slowly people are getting those like assigning certain traits
Yeah.
to genders, but I also feel like it stands to reason that there are more easily accessible work opportunities for men than women. Like I feel like the point that Imani was mentioning, and also I don't know your name. What's your name again? Yeah. Tim was mentioning, that with these work opportunities or charter schools or where men have these direct accesses to being in the workforce. Like I remember, I guess this is one of the soft facts anecdotes, but I visited an accounting firm and I had people with me who like played baseball when they were younger. So now they're like totally best friends with the CEO. So of the connection
Yeah.
and that seniority factor, even though they have just as much education as I do or just as much access to that education as I do. But is there something to be said for women having to try harder in schools or in education than men do to have equal access to those opportunities?
Yeah. Well, that's what you just said just now. That's all over both of those articles I read. That this doesn't make it true. It's just go ahead, but women, once Title IX kicked into gear and they were given the opportunity, they took extraordinary advantage of their opportunity and they didn't waste, and collectively speaking, at least, they didn't waste the chance that they got. And they are tracing that all the way back to first graders, like really working hard. That's one of my soft anecdotes about my kids. I have a complete set, daughter and a son, and they're both, I'll tell you right now, like, so one thing I'll tell you, actually, it's a little sad, actually, so my daughter just entered high school, but last year in the 8th grade, we were all online until the very end, till the last quarter. And one of the interesting things that afforded us was this opportunity to sort of like relearn algebra. Like you can hear everything that's going on and everything. And my daughter, in her class, her teacher, I love her. So this teacher, like, she would ask like the young lady here, like, can you give me the answer to number 17? And then you can hear that young lady's voice, like loud and clear, like, all right, I did this, I did this, I did this. My daughter is more quiet and shy, but she asked her, and we were working on that with her, like, you got to speak up. And she spoke up and she answered. It would take sometimes 3 minutes to go through 4 or 5 young ladies in the class and get their answer, and their answers were usually correct. Sometimes the teacher would say, oh, you forgot to do this thing or whatever. And there were a couple of young men, of course, I can't say their names or anything. And it's weird. Like I almost fell in love with these kids. Like I never even met them, but the teacher would be like, I've told you so many times to turn your camera on. Why can't you turn your camera on? And then you can hear him, I'm sorry, I had, it was so nice. They weren't being rude or anything like that. Like, but they couldn't do it. And then there were many times where she called on the kid and she didn't mean to be mean at all. She called him, just wasn't there. He's gone. We don't know. Like, or I asked my daughter, like, where do you think he went? And she's like, he's always not there. Like he's, even when we're in school, sometimes he just he just walks out of the room. Those are anecdotes. Those are not facts. Those are, The other thing I wanted to tell you, I'm worried about this because this is about my own son. So this was just last night. So this is just an example. So he's got a test today. I'll find out when we get home about his test on the microscope and all the parts of the microscope. And there's something like a field of view when you're using the 4 times versus the 10 times versus the, I think, 40 times or something like that. And we went all over that. And the field of view, that's like a 4, I'm just being boring, sorry about that, but it's 4 millimeters if you're working with the low power. It's like 1.5 millimeters if you're working with the medium power, and then I think it's like 0.5 millimeters. And that means like you're only seeing 0.5 millimeter when you're looking at it. So he had some notes about that, and I was reading his notes and kind of asking him about that. And then he took a shower. And then it dawned on me, you know what? I think she has some notes about this. I just remembered. it just occurred to me, like, I'm almost sure, and my wife and I were digging around, like, and we found them. We found this science notebook from 2 years ago, same teacher, everything the same. And I don't know, it's just an anecdote, but like her notes, they were like Pulitzer Prize winning notes. Like these notes were amazing. And they were in color, and I am not kidding you. Like she drew a picture of like what the field of view looks like if you have some weird amoeba and you're looking at it within this particular power, and it was all different colors and everything, and it was beautiful. And my son didn't even have he didn't even have like anything in the field of view. And I asked him about like, how come? He's like, well, I know what it is, like he just kind of dismissed the importance of it. And it's not a fact. It's not even really much of an anecdote. But the point is, he's a pretty good student, actually. He does care, but it doesn't seem like his like it, I don't know, like it doesn't feel like we can just leave him alone. Whereas with our daughter, we had no idea she even made those notes. Do you know what I mean? Like the effort was there, or the sort of industry or whatever was already there. So
I want to ask about this. Right, so I think, I love this topic because I think I completely agree with thesis one, which is.
what is that?
Concerned that there's not as much knowledge. And I don't, and we could wonder about whether that's a wiring thing or it's a psychological thing, or if there's subtle cultural influences that are having them interest or whatever, when they build.
Mhm.
But then you had this other thesis that for a minute earlier about like maybe we should talk about affirmative action.
Well, please understand, Mr. Professor Garcia, that's not my, I mean,
Yeah.
that's there. And I think at the beginning, the colleges, I think Baylor was mentioned in the article.